Today we are going to talk about break effect. We're going to learn what actually increases break damage and is it worth it to build break effect on your characters. So what is break effect? Break effect is the damage that you deal when you break the enemy shield or toughness bar. Each element actually has different break effect. Wind break effect is wind shear, electric is shock, physical is bleed, quantum is entanglement, and so on. And break effect does not increase your damage to the enemy's toughness bar or shield. Your damage to the toughness bar is fixed. In all of these elements, the best one to deal maximum damage is quantum and physical, next is wind, and then a tie between fire and electric. If you're building a break effect set on your character, it is important that you build it on a character that has the aforementioned element. The rest of the element does not deal the most break damage and it is not worth it to build break effect on them. So imaginary and ice is out of the question for break effect set. As you can see right here, each element has a different multiplier. Those multiplier affects the final break damage, kinda like a skill for example, right? But there's another big thing that affect your break damage. First, I want you guys to take a look at the break damage that we deal right here on the minions. The break damage that we deal is 1044. And when we deal break damage to the big guys right here, we deal 3033. Well, what makes such a big difference? The main reason is because break damage scales with the enemy's toughness bar. If we take a look at the enemy database here, we can see that the Direwolf Automaton actually has 300 toughness bar and the minion only has 60 toughness bar. So break damage difference comes from the element itself, the enemy's toughness bar, and then what else? What other factor actually increases break damage? And the answer is actually your level. Break damage actually has a different base damage based on your level. In this table, we can see that the break damage actually increases as your level goes up, making your break damage deal more damage the higher your level is. Then we have the break effect multiplier from the relic itself. All of this contributes to how high your break damage is. Another thing to keep in mind is that break damage actually doesn't scale with attack stats, damage percent, and they can't crit, making break damage a good source of damage for your characters if you don't want to invest too much in them, since they only need one stat and it's way easier to build it. But it does come at a cost, since break effect can benefit from buffers like Tingyan and Bronya that give crit and attack percent, damage percent. They rely on the buffer to increase their damage. Because defense threat and damage taken debuff from Sampo, for example, does increase your break damage potential, making Nihility the go-to support for break damage team. So how good is break damage really? Well, this is kind of a tough question to answer, since it really depends on your team, how often you can break the enemy, and how consistent can you break the enemy with the character that you build break effect with. If, for example, you accidentally break the enemy with your shielder or healer, then you're going to lose a lot of value from building break effect on your character. And you don't want to build multiple characters with break effect. You want a break effect character and another crit DPS in order to maximize your damage, because break effect can't really do much on a broken enemy. But break damage is not a bad option either. It depends on your character. For example, a character like Serval can extend the shock that the enemy received when they take break damage, making a break effect set a really competitive set for her. In fact, I am using break effect set for her as of now. Then we have someone like Physical MC and Shushang that benefits a lot from breaking the enemies. We also have Sampo that can make the enemies take more damage from your break effect dot. And sometimes you don't want to invest much on a character. In that case, just slap in break effect set with break effect rope and your character is pretty much ready to go. Break effect don't need that much substat like the crit set in order to work, since they only rely on one stat. But just make sure that you're building it on the right element and on the right character. For now, the best character that can utilize break effect is no doubt Serval, so if you ever need an extra electric character, break effect Serval is really not a bad option. Is it a competitive option with the crit set for Serval? Yes, break effect is a really good set on Serval. On other characters though, not so much. Crit set is always going to be the best option for them. So, the conclusion is break effect is not a bad set. It works and does not require a lot of investment to work. But building it on an imaginary or ice character is a no-go. Is it better than the crit set? For Serval, they are both really good. On other character, it's an option, but not the best. And that is pretty much it. If you ever consider to build a break effect set, go for it. You might like the playstyle. And it's pretty fun build to use. But it does require some sort of planning to work, so if you don't want to think too much when you play the game, just use crit set. So yeah, that's it for me. Stay broke and keep playing gacha games.